Hi. It is Sunday afternoon. It's daylight savings time. It's raining outside, and I have a hot cup of tea, and I am ready to talk to you about all the books I read in October. I read, let's call it 12 and a half books. I have one in this stack that I technically didn't finish, but was mostly finished, that I absolutely loved, but we'll get there. So, I started out October very strong. I started with Bloom by E.J. Blaze, where we follow Caroline and Hunter. Caroline is the ex-girlfriend of the MMC in Bide, I believe. I have not read that yet. I will get there eventually because E.J. Blaze has a new fan in me, okay? Okay. Caroline works in this flower shop and is not in a great place in her life. She has broken up with her boyfriend, Jackson, after I don't know how long they were together. It's been a little while since they broke up, but Caroline's home life is awful, and so she would often spend her time at Jackson's house on the farm that his family owns. He owns the farm. I think he has a split with his siblings. It's a long story there as to why it is that way, but anyway. When they break up, Caroline loses that support system in a way. But then one day, something happens with Jackson's older sister, and Caroline's the only one around to see what's happening and to help her. I think she was pregnant at the time that this thing happened. And the older sister's like, hey, I miss having you around. Why don't you come around anymore? We're still your friends. So they start to hang out more. And one of the times that Caroline's over on the farm, she meets the new farmhand, Hunter. Hunter is this big, gruff, 30-year-old guy, and he acts like he has no interest in her, doesn't even speak real words to her, and literally just kind of grunts in her direction. But the man is smitten immediately. He just is barely holding it together, but she does not know that. And we get this delightful friendship that builds between them in addition to a slow burn romance. Hunter has run away from something, we don't know what, until a good 60% of the book, I think. And he is just trying to do his job, live his life, and have a good time. But Caroline is throwing a wrench in that man's plans, let me tell you. It was so sweet, it was steamy, it was delightful. Content warnings for alcoholism and domestic abuse. Some on page, mostly off, but Caroline's home life isn't great, but I feel like E.J. Blaze handled it really well. I gave this book 5 stars. I was in the midst of a reading slump in the beginning of October, and this book pulled me out of it, okay? It fixed all my problems. So after that, I read Scream for Us by Molly Doyle. This is a Halloween-themed novella. Would not recommend. I don't even think I rated it on here. I think I gave it 2 stars. On Goodreads. Don't recommend. The next winner, though, Off the Hook by Julia Olivia. I was on the fence because this is a Peter Pan retelling, and that did not sound appeasing to me, if I'm being quite honest with you. But I was pleasantly surprised. So we are following Wendy Darling, yes, named directly after the character. She's a teacher about to embark on summer break, and if you know anything about teaching in America, it doesn't pay enough. Doesn't pay a lot. So she's like, shit, I need to do something to fill the gaps in my paycheck. What am I going to do? She used to date Peter, as in Peter Pan, but that's not his family's last name. I can't remember what it is right now, but they were engaged, but Peter is a little too friendly with the ladies, okay? No obvious overt cheating, but Wendy knew he was not choosing her first and probably never would. So they break up. Wendy does the breaking up. She used to come to family dinners at their house, and honestly sometimes still does. And one day they're at dinner, and Peter's brother, whose name I can't think of right now. I want to say Jackson, but that feels wrong. I don't know. But his brother needs help with childcare for his young son, Sam. Sam is his son, but Sam is technically not his son. Jackson, we're going to keep calling him that because I think that's his name, but I can't remember, was Sam's godfather, and then Sam's parents tragically die. This is off page, very beginning of the book we find this out, so no spoilers there. His sister has been helping him with childcare for Sam, but Sam's also been in school, so school's taken up a lot of that. But now it's summer, his sister has a new job, and she can't really do that anymore. And so now Jackson needs to figure out something else to do with Sam. Enter Wendy Darling. What we didn't know is that this brother has had a crush on his brother's girl for a long time, but was doing the respectful thing you do and ignored the shit out of it because he didn't want to cause any turmoil. So we have your classic single dad, nanny, forced proximity situation happening here. Their collective relationship with Sam was so beautiful to watch. Watching Wendy create such a safe place for him to deal with his feelings, because I don't know that he really ever dealt with his feelings of his best friend's death, was great. And then there's also a really good for her moment in there between Wendy and Peter. I had such a great time with that. Gave that 4 stars. There were some aspects of the story that just like bothered me a little bit, and it just didn't give me the full 5-star experience, but it was a good time. So after Off the Hook, I read Deja Brew by Miss Celestine Martin. This is the 3rd book in the, I think it's the Celestial Witch series. The series name isn't on here, but it's a series. But they're interconnected standalones, and you can read them in any order. And how do I know that? This is the first book that I finished in this series. I tried book 1 and I DNF'd it, and then I tried again later this month and ended up finishing it. But I didn't feel like I lost anything by picking up the 3rd book first. This was fantastic. So we follow Serena and Gus. In this, Serena is a kitchen witch, and she has recently dealt with a scam artist who promised her, a partnership and helping her get her, I believe, a cookbook off the ground and, kind of going the celebrity chef track. But after that scam happens, she kind of loses touch with her magic, and it causes a lot of issues. None of her food tastes any good. In fact, it just tastes bland. Doesn't matter how much she seasons it. Even if she knows it's properly seasoned, it tastes bland. She's just lost her spark in the kitchen. So she runs into Gus at the town fall fair and says, "Hey Gus, I need your help. I would like you to show me a good time." Now Gus is known as Good Time Gus, but is trying to leave that. He comes from a family of very popular magicians, and he's also a magician and is very good at it. But that's not where his passion lies. And so for the last 2 years, he has lived in the small town of Freya Grove, being the town historian. He works at the local historical society and runs that, and tracks down magical artifacts and catalogs them and tries to just preserve the history of Freya Grove. And he loves getting to do that and to put little bits of his magic into that to help people with just their day-to-day needs. And he's just found so much peace and solace in that, but his mom does not understand why he doesn't want to come back to the family traveling act of magic. In his quest to help Serena look for a good time, they have so much fun together, and it's almost like childlike whimsy that occurs sometimes when they're together. Like, they're literally just goofing around and having fun because he's trying to help her learn that working isn't everything and that you can truly relax. Now, this also has a little bit of a Groundhog's Day element because Serena made a wish at the beginning of the book for a do-over of October to get her life in order because she just did not feel like she used it wisely. And so there's a lot of magical elements in here that have consequences of them overlapping, but turns out in being a very fun and kind of steamy time. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. I would recommend it. It's so good. After that, I read Vicious Hearts by Jagger Cole, which I gave 3 stars. It was fine. I was in the mood for a mafia romance, but honestly, it didn't really give what I needed it to give. We follow Killian Kildare, who is the head of the Irish Mafia, and this woman is sent in to get rid of him. What he doesn't know is that she is the daughter of a monster in whom Killian thought he had gotten rid of before. But it seems like that monster's ghost is haunting all of them, and it made for a very interesting premise, but the execution was just a little off in my opinion. I also had a really hard time believing in his romance with the woman because that starts fairly early on. It honestly just felt more so like we were just getting an intimate look at a BDSM relationship. And that is fine. but don't market it to me as a dark romance when like the romantic elements just aren't really there. It just wasn't working for me. It just honestly just made me kind of annoyed, if not a little sad, that I wasn't getting the full experience. So after that, I needed a big dub, okay? I needed a lot of romance. So I went with The Worst Duke in London by Amelie Howard. This is the most recent edition of the Taming of the Duke series, and my goodness, it did not disappoint. This is my favorite in the series so far. So in this, we follow Effie and the Duke of Vale, whose name is Gage. This is a Taming of the Shrew retelling. If you didn't experience that Shakespeare work before, think 10 Things I Hate About You. Effie is in charge of being the chaperone for her sister because their mom left several years ago, and Effie is of age and can do that. But she absolutely hates going to London. I think in the last season, she kind of stood up for herself and all women when this very popular man of the ton was making just really crappy commentary about women. Very much like a stay barefoot and pregnant and do as your husband says kind of attitude. And she was like, your wife should be able to have thoughts and to think and to have discussions with you. He names her something awful. I think it was Lady Ghastly, and it's just so cruel to her throughout, but that man also has a huge crush on her sister, and he knows that Effie is never going to go to London without some intervention, so what he does is he engages with Gage, who is just taking over the dukedom because his brother died in a racing accident while he was trying to essentially go double or nothing on some of his gambling debts, and to clear those debts, it did not work out, and now Gage is saddled not only with the dukedom, but also clearing his brother's debts. And so this man says, hey, I will clear the debt your brother owes me if you do me this solid. I need you to woo Effie, get her to go to London, and keep her there for several weeks so that I can put the moves on her sister. I don't need you to guarantee a match or anything, but I need you to at least keep her there so that I can do what I need to do. Gage is apprehensive. He does not like this man, but he's like, you know what? The dukedom is crumbling. I have sold off all that I can sell to pay off my brother's other debts, and I'm drowning, and I need this to work. So he agrees. Now, Gage is a handsome Scotsman, like 6'3", muscular build, a little rough around the edges, but he also is just really endearing, and Effie is immediately attracted and taken with him. And so Effie, being the forward-thinking feminist woman she is like, you know what? I would like to have a dalliance. I would like to have a roll in the sheets with a man, but it needs to be a man I can trust. And so she engages with Gage and says, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and he agrees. So not only do we have the mischief that is him technically lying to her for the reasons he approached her, but then they also have the sexual relationship that they're exploring. Things get steamy, things get messy, things get hot, things get a little chaotic, but it is just done so well. I gave this 5 stars. Again, my favorite in the series. I could not recommend it enough. So after that, I read The Oath by T.M. Richardson. This was a group read for one of the groups in Blackoween. I honestly would not have picked this up on my own had it not been for Blackoween, but I'm glad that this happened. This is a interesting take on a why choose romance. We are following Tatum, whose husband has been terminally ill for a while and is about to pass away at the very beginning of the book. He can see that Tatum is like completely shutting down everything that it would take to take care of herself in order to take care of him. And he's like, you need to be alive again. You need to live life again. So he enacts his best friends, Miles, Deacon, and Cassidy. He runs a law firm with a couple of them. And he's like, hey, I need you guys to be there for my wife when I am gone. And I mean be there for my wife in whatever aspect she wants. But insofar as just day-to-day things, it could be someone for her to lean on, but it also could mean sexually. I don't care. I trust you guys. I think you would be the perfect man to help take care of my wife. She thinks this oath is insane at first and is like, absolutely not. What are y'all talking about? But slowly but surely comes around as the guys continue to show up for her in different ways. And eventually she says, I am interested in exploring this with you guys, but we got to lay some ground rules down. We got to talk about this and do this. And so it's us watching her not only grieve, but honestly kind of get her groove back. It's watching these men fawn all over her and show up for her. Like, one of them calls her in the middle of the workday. She's having an absolutely awful workday. She's a professor at a college. And he's like, are you done with classes? And she goes, yeah, I'm done with classes. He's like, cool, you're done for the day. Take the day off. He's like, you're going to go see my masseuse. Gets her like a 3-hour massage. She comes home. He's got a hot bath and dinner waiting. Like, girl, you better lock him down. Their dynamics together were great. I felt like by the end of the book, I still didn't really know the guys, and this is part of the reason I gave this book 3 stars. It felt really rushed. It's only 275 pages, but I just didn't feel like I knew any of them by the end of that, but I could see their love for her, and that's what really kept me going. I feel like they did a really great job expressing that, so I gave that one 3 stars. Okay, next we get to talk about my favorite book of the month, Bride by Allie Hazelwood. I gave this 5 stars. This was my most unexpected read of the month, but it really paid off for me. So in this, we follow Misery Lark, who is a vampire, and Lo Moreland, who is the alpha of the werewolf pack. So this book opens with Misery doing her boring human job. She has been living undercover in the humans world for years after being what's essentially tribute, think Hunger Games wise, but less immediate death and more glorified hostage situation, where as a child she was given to the humans as a promise that the vampires would not attack the humans. The vampires also got a human child in this exchange. It's a pact that they've had for a long time. But now Misery's an adult, and she doesn't really feel like she belongs anywhere, so she hides herself amongst the humans. She is summoned to her father's office. Her father is the head of the vampire clan, if you will. And he's like, hey, saw your humans got a new governor, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, there was an election sometime back there, sure. He's like, well, this new governor refuses to meet with me, which means that we cannot, like, ratify the new treaty or whatever. And she's like, okay. And he's like, you know what we used to do? And she's like, He's like, we used to get married to the werewolves as a sign of peace and harmony and shit. And she's like, oh, okay. And he's just yapping on. And she's like, wait, didn't you just say someone was getting married? And he's like, yeah, that's going to be you. You're going to get married to the alpha. And she's like, fuck off. No, I'm not. And she goes to leave. Then he tells her the name of the alphas. And it's Lo Moreland. And she's like, who? And then she's like, immediately, I'm in. And we're like, why would she change her tune that fast? What does she know about this alpha? We soon find out later there's an underlying mystery that goes along with that. But Misery and Lo are married in this show of good faith between vampire and human and werewolf kind. Because if neither of them can really trust the humans, maybe they can learn to trust each other, blah, 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 blah. Misery is sarcastic and hilarious all throughout this. I was not ready to love her personality, but I was obsessed. I also love how open Lo was with her. Honestly, from the beginning, he was pretty distant initially when she moves in, but he like slowly starts to open up to her and explain things that are going on. I also really loved his little sister throughout this story. She was maybe 5 years old, I think. And she was super fun. I'm trying to find her name. Anna. Anna is her name. Or Anna. And she was so cute, so precocious, so funny. But she provided a lot of comedic relief, but also was a sense of tension in some of the really climactic moments. This book was a ride. If you were looking for a fantasy romance that is funny and easy to read about and learn about, 10 out of 10 recommend. This was such a good time. So after Bride, I did an arc read of Power Play by Chelsea Curto. This is book number 2 in the DC Stars series. Piper's on the communications team for the DC Stars, and Liam, our MMC, is the goalie on the team. They decide to enter into a fake dating situation because Liam has to go to a wedding abroad for his sister, and his parents have been bothering him about, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to meet a nice girl? When are you going to get married? When are you going to have babies? And he's so tired of hearing it that he's like, if I just bring somebody with me, like that'll shut him up. So I'm going to do that. And now Piper is dealing with the trauma of being married to a narcissist and it just being terrible. She also has only ever slept with that man, and she would like to rectify that situation and find a safe place to explore her sexuality. So she asks Liam if he will be that safe place for her after a series of things happens in the book. And let me tell you guys, this was so, so good. The use of consent in this book and repeated check-ins that he does with her over big and little things was fantastic. I also really love that they had this budding friendship that started honestly very early on before this pact even really starts. And then once it does, it's so funny to watch Liam go from like this loner who never wants to see anyone, and then all he wants to do is hang out with Piper. They were so fun to watch together. Yes, there are plenty of steamy scenes, but there's even more just like sweet moments between them. If you were tired of your sports romances being you're going from bus to another bus to a plane to a bus to a club, another club, and it's all just like, and you're like, these two don't know each other. This will fix that. Read Power Play. Read Power Play. It'll fix that for you. Such a good time. And then after I was done with that, because I was just in the mood to continue reading about a man who enjoys taking care of a woman, I reread Alive and Wells by Bailey Hanna. I read this book for the first time, I believe, in April, and I had such a good time with it. And Bailey Hanna just got picked up by a traditional publisher, so I knew her books were probably leaving KU soon, so I was like, let me reread this while I'm still thinking about it. And I'm glad I did, because literally the day I returned it, the next day, it got pulled off of KU. So, like, couldn't have had better timing there. But this follows Cassidy and Austin Wells. Cecily and Austin. Cecily is in a abusive marriage, and she is trying to escape. And at night, she has been in this DV chat room talking to other women like her, and she met this woman through that, who she learned lives in the same general area of Canada as her. And this woman's much older and has told her, hey, when you are ready, I will help you. Like, but when you're ready, I'm not going to try and like push you out of this, because I think what a lot of us have learned through media especially is that you cannot help someone who's not ready to help themselves or doesn't have the catalyst to move out of a situation like that. And in this case especially, Cecily's husband had never really been physically abusive to her. So she always had this thing in the back of her mind, well, like, he doesn't hit me, so it's really not that bad. Like, I just made him really mad today, or I didn't do the thing that he likes, or whatever. But we see a scene in the very beginning of the book that really escalates. I will say Bailey puts a really great trigger warning in the beginning of the book. Take it very seriously. Personally, I believe that you can skip those scenes and immediately start into when she's in the ranch and not really miss anything. Like, if it's too triggering for you but you want to read the story, it is a very condensed part in that beginning. Now, you do have moments where Cecily is like adverse to touch from men and has these other moments, or she references KJ, her ex-husband or soon-to-be ex-husband, later throughout the book. So it does continue on, but not in the overtly graphic way that happens in the first, I think, 2 chapters of the book. And then you have Austin, who helps run Wells Ranch, owns it with his brothers, and he's this gruff dude who has just kind of decided that, like, he's over love. He met this girl a while back. She lived on the ranch, but was a city girl through and through, and she just wanted to have a good cowboy old time. And then once fall and winter set in, she's like, ooh, this is not the life for me, and then dipped. And that really broke his heart. So when this seemingly ditzy, preppy, like, girly girl of a city girl comes in and is now living on his ranch, he's like, she's not going to make it. This girl's got to go. Absolutely not. And then she holds her own, and he is shocked by her, but also really, really attracted to her and, like, doesn't really know what to do with that. And so watching the two of them figure that out, watching him make decisions for them that Cecily can't even, like, make for herself. And I don't mean, like, an overly domineering way, but, like, at one point, like, she wants to, like, progress their relationship, and he's like, you're not ready for that. It's like, you're not ready for that. He's like, I can't even touch you without you flinching, and you want to be with me. So, like, we need to, like, work through that first. And it was just fun to see, like, him doing that, but then also not pulling away from her, and, like, the teasing and flirting that would still happen. And I don't know. I just really liked it. I love the found family aspect of their ranch. They have a ton of strays on their ranch, just like of people who are there from all different walks of life and things that have happened. And yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. So as I mentioned before, I reread Wishful Thinking by Celestine Martin. This is the first book in the Elemental Love series. That's what this is called. And it was fine, if I'm being honest. It was fine. It was a good setup for the series. I ended up really liking the second half of the book. I kind of struggled with the first half, which I think is why I DNF'd it the first time. I don't know if I fully recommend it, but I also don't, like, not recommend it. I just wanted more. This follows Lucinda Carraway, who goes by Lucy, and Alex. Lucy and Alex were friends in high school, and they honestly kind of had this, like, budding romance starting to happen, but Lucy's sister or cousin, her cousin, Ursula, warns Alex away from Lucy, and she's like, if you don't know your intentions with her, like, don't even try it, because you're just going to break her heart, and we're all going to have to deal with that, and I will never forgive you. And so he doesn't, and after graduation, like, literally they're at graduation ceremony, it's ending, this man hops in his car and drives away after, like, a very quick goodbye to Lucy. And so now we're, like, several years into the future. They're at the fall festival that happens every year in their town and run into each other. And they kind of have this spark between them. But Lucy's still very hurt by Alex's just complete dropping of her from her life. And it wasn't even, like, the romantic side of it. It was the fact that he just, like, didn't even try to keep up with her, like, even just as friends. He just kind of, like, ditched and went on. But Alex is also a merman, and that is a part of their, like, a negative part of, like, their characteristics, apparently, at least in the setting of this book. It's that mermen always move around, they don't settle down, they don't fall in love, they don't whatever. Alex comes back. His parents have bought him a house for his birthday, which is a wild gift to give somebody, in an attempt, I guess, to help him try to settle down roots. And so he gets Lucy to help him fix up the house, and he's trying to figure out if he's going to sell it or not by the end of the summer. And then Lucy is, their 10-year high school reunion is happening, I think, or a reunion. And Lucy, one night, has been drinking with her sisters and her cousin, and is wishing for a different life, and that her life was more exciting. And in that, she wrote down all the things that she was thinking about for her wish in a draft email to the person who runs their, like, high school reunion newsletter, and sends it, and is like, oh, I run half marathons, and I'm an excellent baker, and I do this and I do that. Those are not things that she does. They're all things she wished she did, and that she wished she had the courage to do. And so we watch her go on this journey of doing those things, and of trying to be this different person with all these exciting elements to her life. And we kind of watch her struggle with that, while also struggling with her budding feelings for Alex and their chemistry and things happening. And she wants to try some things, and so does he, but then she's worried he's not going to stay, and honestly, so is he. And it just becomes kind of chaotic. I don't know that the book could fully decide where it wanted to go, and I think that's why I had such a hard time with it. I can understand that they weren't so sure how Alex was going to be and do for certain things, and that's fine, but I just wish there had been, I don't know, maybe a stronger through line throughout all of it. So that was Wishful Thinking. And then I read Say You'll Be Mine by Naina Kumar. I loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. This is following a teacher, Meghna, and a engineer whose name was Karthik. Meghna's parents have always wanted her to be an engineer. She has no desire to do that, but her parents are like, you should go to grad school, you should do this, you should do that. And she's like, I really like being a teacher. I don't want to leave that profession. Like, I wish you guys would just be kind of proud of me. And then we have Karthik, whose mom keeps taking him to, I forget what they have a specific name, but they're essentially these meetings for arranged marriages where he is meeting these women and his mom is trying to get him set up He has no desire to get married. He has watched his parents have a very tumultuous marriage. He does not like the way his dad treats his mom, and more importantly, he's very afraid of his dad's temper and that he sees that in himself. And he doesn't want to do that to somebody else. His mom, or Megna's mom, actually says, hey, I want you to think about something. Like, how would you feel if I set up one of these meetings and you got to meet somebody and decide whether or not, you wanted to date them, marry them, whatever. And Megna has been hung up on her college ex-boyfriend, who is honestly a piece of shit, but she doesn't know that yet. And so she tells her mom, you know what, I'll try. And her mom is so stunned that she immediately gets off the phone just so Megna won't change her mind. And so Megna and Karthik meet, and Karthik's like, so what number meeting is this for you? And she's like, oh, this is the first one. Because he's like, she doesn't seem to know how this is supposed to go, and it's because she doesn't. She's never really done one of these before. And he's like, why would you? And she's like, I don't know. My mom offered. I just said yes. And he's like, you do not seem like the kind of girl who needs help. And she's like, what's that supposed to mean? He's like, it just seems like you get a guy on your own. And she's like, sure, but I don't know. I wanted to make my parents happy, and this is not, any skin off my back to go and do this thing. And so they meet. It doesn't really go well because Karthik is also very standoffish. And honestly, he kind of gave me, it felt like he maybe is autistic a little bit, but that never comes up in the book. But his general demeanor with her definitely gives that. And so I wasn't sure if there was some neurodivergence going on there, but that's the energy he gives. And since Megna doesn't really know him, she just thinks he's being kind of rude and uninterested. And he tells her, he's like, okay, this isn't real for me. I have no desire to get married. I'm doing this to make my mom happy. So we'll have this meeting, and then, in a day or two, I'll tell my mom oh no, I'm not interested. But when he leaves, he can't stop thinking about her, and he lies and tells his mom oh yeah, I'm going to call her, or we're going to get engaged or whatever. And his mom's like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And so they enter into this fake engagement because at this same time, Megna's ex-boyfriend, who she is still friends with and talks to on a regular basis, tells her that he's getting married very soon and he wants her to be his best man because he can't do it without her, blah, blah, blah. So Megna's like, cool, okay, I'm going to need help. I'm going to need a date for this wedding because there's no way I can go through this on my own. And so through the process of them fake dating, we watch them get to know each other's struggles a little bit, and watch them both deal with some big things in their lives that kind of shake things up for them. And it was really cool getting to watch them lean on each other. And I loved how non-judgmental Megna was of everything that would happen with Karthik. And I think he really needed that. And so it was really fun to watch. Really fun to watch. I also love this. That was a debut, which is crazy. I wanted to read it because I got an arc of Flirting with Disaster, which is Naina Kumar's second book. And I wanted to kind of see what her writing was like. I already knew the premise of Flirting with Disaster was for me, but I wanted to see how her first book went. And wow. She did a great job with that. Excellent job. And so technically that was my last book of the month, but I did say I read 12 and a half. And it's because I was 65% done with The Very Secret Society of Regular Witches on October 31st. And then I was too tired to finish. And so I finished on Friday the 1st. This is so, so good. So in this, we follow Mika Moon, who is a witch living in Britain. And in this world, witches have had issues with being together and being persecuted. And so there's a big veil of secrecy happening here. They have these irregular meetings every few months to get together and talk about things that are going on. But they don't really hang out on a day-to-day basis. Mika makes these YouTube videos, and somebody sees it, figures out that she's a witch, and asks her to come to their manor to help teach the 3 young witches in their charge about what it means to be a witch, how to take care of their powers, how to learn how to do magic and control it and those things. So Mika goes. She decides to stick around after meeting the children, and figures that this might be a good thing for her. She's never had any sense of community. She was raised in isolation, and she is desperate for that kind of communication relationship. And then we have Jamie, who is the librarian at the manor and probably the most protective of the 3 young witches who live there. And at first he's very apprehensive about Mika coming. He's not excited for her to be there, does not want to see her. But his feelings for her grow nearly immediately, it feels like, because he hears more and more about her like lonely childhood, and he gets to see how magical she is just as a person and has nothing to do with her actual magic. And that man's like in love with her by like week 3 of her living there, whether he realizes it or not. And it was just so sweet and also whimsical and flirty and fun and heartwarming. There's a nice found family aspect through here that I absolutely loved. So I also ended up giving that 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in October. I am so looking forward to November. I've already read one 5-star book, which is crazy. I can't wait to see what else happens. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all in another video soon.